Welcome everyone, and a very good evening to everybody. A very good morning to you, Rachel. So first of all, a warm welcome to all of you from EMOTICONS India. For some of you who do not know about the organization, I'll just brief you about it. It's a psychological counseling, testing, training, and a research center. And this is another webinar from our series, Let's Hear It from the Expert. Many of you must have attended our other webinars and hope you continue attending our future webinars also. And today's webinar especially is very close to me because this topic in itself is professionally very close to me too. And we have with us Ms. Rachel Sussman. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She is a marriage and family therapist, and she is a recognized relationship expert. She is also a founder of Sussman Counseling Center in New York City, and she has authored the book, The Breakup Bible. Is that right, Rachel?
Yes, the Breakup Bible.
Lovely, right. So without taking much of a time, I'm going to straight away get into the topic. But before that, I would like to just request everyone that please keep your audios on mute. If you have any questions during the webinar that might come to your mind, you might just note it down, and later on after our discussion, we will be opening this platform for everyone to ask your questions. So at that time, you can ask the questions directly to her on the video, or else you might just write that in the chat box and we will try to incorporate as many questions as we can. Is that fine? Rachel, would that be okay? Maybe after our conversation, maybe some of them would want to ask some questions to you. And
Absolutely.
Lovely. That's great. So I'm going to be starting with this entire topic in itself, right? Which is strains on relationships. So if you would like to tell us what does this entire topic and what does this really mean when it comes to strains on relationship to begin with?
Well, when every talk that I'm doing or every couple I'm meeting with, I always start up by saying no relationship is perfect. You know, we're not perfect as human beings. We might strive to always be better, but no relationship is perfect. And in any relationship, two human beings come together who were raised completely differently in different families, sometimes in different cultures, in different countries. And they come together and they have a fantasy of it should be this, Bollywood, smooth sailing, wonderful union. And of course, we know nothing in life really works this way. And of course, the higher our expectations are, the greater the likelihood that we might be disappointed. So I just want to say that every relationship is unique, and every relationship has its combination of joys and complexities, and that is completely normal. So when does something become a strain on a relationship? A couple could have an issue or a problem. It could be something between themselves, or it could be something external. Possibly a child that has learning differences, or a sick parent, or it could be something between themselves. Maybe their communication isn't as great as it could be. And, all of these are normal situations, but when it becomes a strain is when it doesn't get solved very well within the couple. So they might have some problem that might seem small at one point, but yet if the couple goes on and on and on, day in and day out, year in and year out, having an issue over this one thing, and it's not getting resolved, it becomes a strain. And actually something that's quite small could end up, breaking up a couple or making them get divorced at some point because they've never dealt with it in a healthy fashion.
Right, like it might get magnified with a very small topic in between. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly, right. And then it becomes like a hot topic, a hot button topic. Like, here we go again. I can't believe you're bringing this up again. And the person's bringing it up again 5 years, 10 years later because it's never been resolved.
Right, absolutely. It just seems like the things have been just pushed under the carpet, but they are not actually resolved.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So I would like to then ask you that since you spoke about how the things can magnify and can become, strains on relationship. So would you like to share something also on the lines of when we talk about compatibility in the
Yes.
relationship, right? So a lot of people talk about he is not compatible or she is not compatible. So I'm sure everyone here is very curious to just know what the hell is this compatibility in the relationship?
And, again, I think it really comes down to how a couple deals with conflict. I know a couple that the woman is very extroverted and she has a lot of friends and she loves to go out, and she's an African American woman. Okay, she married a white guy, as white could be, and he is the biggest introvert. He doesn't like people.
Yeah.
He doesn't even like to go out. All he wants to do is go to work and play golf. And guess what? This couple's been married for 30 years. I went to their wedding, and I think they have a great marriage. They really love each other. They're really happy with each other. So a lot of people would look at them and say they're so incompatible, but they have a great skill set. They know how to compromise. They know how to speak to each other. They know what each other expects of each other. Okay? Then you might find a couple that they come from the same hometown, that they were raised in the same way, the same religion, the same ethnicity, and this couple just can't get along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it really so compatibility is a very innocuous word, and I think a lot in a relationship gets fleshed out when you're dating, and the more that you could get to know about a person when you're dating, the more you could see if you're going to be compatible with them and they're going to be compatible with you.
That's right. Because there's a very wrong notion about compatibility altogether. As in, people feel that compatibility is like, I like certain things and he also likes certain things. So it's not just about liking the same things, isn't it? It's more
It's
about.
not at all.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
A couple can really like ice cream and they can really bond over that, but then they have no skills to get along in any other way. So
Right.
it not only is it it's nice to have things in common,
Right.
okay? But what's even more important is that you have the skills to give each other the independence that each other might need, and to communicate over tricky issues. I mean, that's one of the biggest skills a couple can have, is to
Right.
communicate over things that could be complicated.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I think that was spot on. Like, you need skills to build a relationship. It's like relationship cannot really work on its own. You need to work on it to make it work, isn't it?
Just like you have to work on a friendship, just like you have to work hard in your job to keep a job and to get a promotion.
Right. Yes. 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 Okay. So the next point that I would like you to talk about is this entire difference between understanding compromising versus sacrificing in a relationship. So would you like to share something?
And that's a great question. And everyone has to compromise in every relationship. If you start with your childhood, if you were born in a house that had siblings, and I think in India, a lot of homes are multi-generational, so there might be 10 people under one roof. Obviously, you've got to learn at a really young age to compromise, okay? And sometimes you even have to learn to sacrifice. A family might only have so much money, and one child might be sent to one school because they have either special needs or special gifts, and the other child might not. So I think at a young age, people should learn compromise, and they should also learn sacrifice. You get into a relationship, there's an adult relationship, there's going to be a lot of compromise. And if you're very rigid and you have a hard time compromising, you better marry someone who's an angel or a saint who is selfless, because everyone has needs, and that's okay. So the typical couple is constantly compromising, and that's all right. It's a skill set we should always use. Then it can get a little complicated if it comes to sacrifice. So, what is the difference between a compromise and a sacrifice? Some sacrifices might mean having to relocate because your partner's family lives in a certain country or a certain state, or your partner gets transferred for a job, okay?
Yes.
So, I'm working with a couple right now. He's from Egypt. She's from New York City. He's from Cairo. And he's in a family business and he cares for an elderly parent. Obviously, he can't move. So she knew from the beginning that if they were to get married, she was going to have to relocate to Egypt. And you know what? She said she would, but now she doesn't want to, and she's really mad. And she has a very big job here in New York. So she's looking at it as a sacrifice. So this is a complicated, situation. And what I'm saying to the man is, yes, she is giving up a lot to come here. What will you give in return? And they're kind of looking at it like a contract. And I think sometimes it has to be that way. In other ways, I see sacrifice, and this is here in America, if someone has to give up their religion to marry another person, that could be a big sacrifice. Relocation is a sacrifice. Marrying someone that has children, who's had a previous marriage. And, so perhaps you'll have less children than you wanted, or maybe you might not even be able to have children. Yeah. These are sacrifices. And people, sometimes for love, we do sacrifice. As parents, we sacrifice for our children all the time. But the goal is to accept it and to feel that your partner appreciates what you're doing for them.
That's nice. So that just makes me ask another question, which might be very connected, looking in mind, especially the Indian community, because I believe here it's very strongly believed that you are not just marrying the other person, you are marrying the entire family. Yeah. And in that, it might be very possible that you might have these family ideologies differing from your own. Yeah.
Right.
Then there is a possibility of some kind of difficulties in the relationship or problems in the relationship that might arise. So is there any way that couple can take a preventive measure so that it doesn't further become a strain on relationship?
What you're describing can bring a lot of joy to a family because it's lovely to have an extended family. And I believe for children, it really does take a village. What's wrong with having a lot of love and having a lot of relatives who care about you? Yes. That being said, I've also seen it take a tremendous toll on a relationship. I understand the Indian culture. I've been to India several times, and I have plenty of Indian couples in my practice here in New York City, where there's a very big Indian community. And I'm thinking of one particular couple I recently worked with, and the husband felt so angry that he felt that the wife and her family were making all the decisions for the family and for their children. And he was really thinking of getting a divorce because what he was saying to me is, my voice doesn't matter. I'm not respected in my family. And in this particular couple, the wife was very manipulated and by her family, and she felt very beholden to them, and she didn't feel comfortable standing up to them. And some of the work I had to do with this couple is to teach them how lovely it is to have family and how we can always listen to a family's perspective. But in my opinion, the important decisions should be made by the couple. And I think there are ways to say, Mom and Dad, your counsel is very wise and we really respect you, but we have spoken about it amongst ourselves and we've made this decision. And, the couple has to be empowered to make their own decisions. And again, we can always compromise, but what's the most important thing is that the husband and the wife are aligned.
Right. Very well said. Yeah, absolutely. And so in that regard, how are individual persons' values, their own personal values, or maybe basic criteria, become important in order to avoid the further strains on relationship?
Well, and I think a lot of this can be worked out when the couple is dating, because this is the time where you're really supposed to get to know each other and get to know each other's likes and dislikes. And like I said, the more you have in common, the better. But if two people have very different values,
Yeah.
are very different life philosophies, and that's brought out early on in the courtship, there's going to be a problem. And you know, some of what I see, maybe what we talk about here a lot in America is what we call work-life balance. Okay,
Right.
that having a job is very important, but also being able to take care of yourself, having couple time, having time with friends is also considered very important. And I've seen couples when they're dating that one person is very ambitious and the other person isn't so much so. Like one person might work to live and the other person lives to work. Okay.
Right.
So you have to either accept that about each other and be able to joke about it, or maybe that couple should not go forward.
Okay. So are there any typical values that you might want to pinpoint, like these are the values which are essential for anybody to consider while they are in a dating phase?
Yes, I mean, like I mentioned, work-life balance. You know,
Right.
I've seen couples come in where one person has a very fast-track career, but the other person never sees them. And I've seen women cry in my office saying,
Yeah.
I knew what he was about when I married him, but this just isn't working for me anymore. He works all weekends. We have to cancel every holiday. He can never go to the children's school performances. You know, that couple is a couple in crisis. So, you know, I think work-life balance is important. I think religion is important. Financial spending versus saving. So the way couples look at finance is very important. The way the couple looks at extended family,
Right.
values,
Right. Okay.
even education. You know,
Right.
these are things that whenever possible, the couple should be aligned.
The pillars of life, what we call them.
Yes,
Yeah.
agree. The more you can be aligned, the better.
Right. Right. Great. Okay, so the further question that I have is, especially keeping in mind the current scenario, because many of them are trying to maintain this social distance, and that brings to them living in a long distance relationship. So
Right.
in spite of being into this long distance relationship, how can one maintain the spark in the relationship still alive?
Well, long distance relationships are not easy at any time, but they're especially difficult now. Usually with long distance relationships, one of the most important elements is that the couple knows when they're going to see each other again.
Yeah.
And that keeps them going. When I'm working with a couple that's long distance, I make sure that they always have on their calendar when they're going to see each other again. And often there's some sort of an ebb or flow where one person goes to the other person 1 week a month and vice versa. So they're together 2 weeks a month. Right now with COVID, I'm working with couples that haven't seen each other for over 3 months, and they don't know when they're going to see each other again, especially if they're in different countries. So what I've been doing with these couples is making sure they have a schedule for when during the day they're having video calls with each other, and also that it's not just a check-in video call. Maybe they're doing something together. They're watching a show together, they're playing a game together, or they're cooking or eating a meal together. I have a couple right now where one is in London and one is in New York, and they've been taking online classes together, including cooking classes. So that's what I'm trying to do by keeping it fun in that way and keeping it light, even though they know they don't fully know when they're going to see each other again. But it's definitely a challenging time for long distance relationships.
It indeed is. Yes, right. So why you said, and whatever different strategies you said, or whatever different ways you said, people can still maintain this. I'm sure some of them are really trying to do that, whereas some of them might be just getting into a conflict also, right?
Yes.
And in such scenario, when they probably might get into a conflict and either of the partner is really not willing to take a step ahead to solve it. Yeah.
Right.
At the moment, because I believe it's very important in relation to be solution oriented rather than problem oriented. So how can one really address that conflict when they are both unwilling, and we might, one of the names we can say that both of their egos might coming in a picture of
Absolutely.
getting, approaching. Yeah.
You know, you're making a great point, because relationships do work best when the couple is solution oriented versus conflict oriented. And often, you know, and yet we know that human beings are emotional creatures.
Yes.
And sometimes a feeling we have or the way we respond to something might be more emotional than logical. Okay.
Right.
And of course, you know, if you take a couple that is under stress or has significant conflict and give them yet one more conflict, one of them or both of them can become quite explosive. And once you go to that place, it's very hard to dial it back. So, you know, I always look for a couple of things. One is to be taking your own temperature. You know, how stressed are you? And, you know, and if you find yourself getting very stressed or even very aggravated with your partner, it's up to you to take a step back and take care of yourself, or figure out how you can get yourself into a better space, you know?
Right.
Because if you're not doing that, you're just bringing a lot of that stress and that angst into each conversation. So if both people would be checking in with themselves, taking care of themselves, there's a greater likelihood that when conflict arises, they'll be able to walk it back and get to a better place. Yet if that doesn't happen and there is a big blowout, and that can happen, give it time. You know, if it's having a rapid boil, give it, you know, turn the heat down, let it get to a low simmer, maybe revisit the next day. And then, you know, it's so important to say you're sorry. Even if you feel you were only 10% in the wrong, if you could just say, you know, I'm really sorry I lost my temper. I'm really sorry I didn't react well to what you said. I was tired. I was having a bad day. You know, let's try to have a reset.
That's right. I think, and this constant reminder to each other, or to more than each other, to yourself, that I need to really solve the problem, and instead of getting into the entire blame game, that is who is right and who is wrong, that might really be helpful, isn't it?
Very helpful. And, you know, look, we all know that the blame game doesn't do anything, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, couples have a tendency from time to time to resort back to childhood behaviors, or how they might have fought with their siblings or something like that. And it's, you know, really important to, if you catch yourself doing that, to just remind yourself that you're an adult and that you have responsibilities in this relationship. You wouldn't act this way at work. You wouldn't behave this way with a colleague. You know, you know, try to, you know, walk it back and do a better job.
Right. I think that point which you mentioned, that is giving it some time and taking a step back, really helps, because it allows you to give that reflection time where you can really calm yourself down and rethink about the situation, where you can really try to work on the solution together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes I see couples where someone says, I need to take a break, I need to press pause, and the other person won't let them.
True.
And that can cause a really explosive conflict. So both people need to understand that hitting pause, stepping back, it's not avoiding. It's actually a perfectly healthy strategy to let everyone calm down. It's like giving a child a timeout, you know?
Absolutely. Yes. And not to conclude that just taking a break would mean that it's ending the relation in itself. Yeah. Lovely.
Some of the worst fights I've seen is when one person either asks for a break or tries to walk out of the room, and the other person doesn't let them.
Yeah, that's right. And that also in itself can become a strain. Yeah.
It can become a real strain, and neither person is right or wrong. If someone needs a break, they're perfectly entitled to a break. It doesn't mean they're walking away for good.
Right. Also, Rachel, I have this another question which kind of runs in my mind when I think about, you know, people talking about, the couples talking about being together, always wanting to spend time together. And as you might know, the 5 love languages that we speak. So I think there is also the 6th language which might be really important, which is maintaining the distance, right? Like having space as well. Like a lot of
Yes.
them just have this notion of we always need to be together, but somewhere even giving that space and not being close in itself might be needed. So could you share your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. You're bringing up a great point. There are a lot of people that think that being in a relationship means you should be together 24/7. That's not so healthy. That being
Yeah,
said, I don't know how healthy it is either to have a relationship or a marriage where you barely see the other person unless the
yeah,
other one's on. So I do a little thing like, this is not the healthiest relationship. This is not the healthiest relationship, but this is just right. So
yes,
everyone needs to have some independence. And,
right,
and I think for a couple, it's a real turn on to see your partner as having friends, having hobbies,
yes,
even traveling separately. I personally love it when my husband's involved in some big project or he's traveling on his own and then he comes home. I can't wait to hear all about it, So,
absolutely,
and I think as years go on, relationships can get stale. And
right.
what keeps it fresh is having something that's your own that you can share with your partner and talk to your partner about.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So I really love this thing you may mention because it's more like a Venn diagram, I think, what you
Yes.
in a way trying to talk, right? So that's something very important for the couples to consider always. Lovely.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you have a partner who doesn't like you doing things outside of the relationship, that could be insecurity, that could be jealousy, and
Yeah,
that partner is not showing you respect. And in
right.
fact, that can even be an emotionally abusive relationship.
I'm
Because
sure.
I've seen partners who are very insecure and they don't like their husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend having a life or having friends outside of the couple. I would say that is a red flag. And it doesn't
Right.
mean, oh my God, he loves me so much, he doesn't want me to see my friends. That is really unhealthy. And that women and men have to look out for that.
Right.
In a healthy relationship, when you're dating, your boyfriend or your girlfriend wants you to have independence,
Right. Right.
and they admire that. They're not threatened by it.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned about the red flag, let me also ask you that what do you think could be the other red flags where you think that the actual birth of a breakup or even divorce, because when you're
Yeah.
talking about relationship, you're not just meaning a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you're talking about the husband and wife also. So where do you think the actual birth of this breakup or the divorce might take
Yeah.
place? And where is it important for a couple to know that they are fighting a losing battle and that they need to let go of a relationship while
Well,
respecting?
yeah. I've read statistics that a very high percentage of divorces, one or both of the parties will say that the problem that broke them up was with them since they were dating. Okay? So if you have a pretty severe issue and you choose to marry that person anyway, there's a very good likelihood that that is going to be the reason that you get divorced. Okay?
Right.
So, and I've seen it, some of the pillars that we were talking about might not be aligned, yet you're hoping that person will change. I know a couple who got married, and the man had said from the very beginning he didn't want children, and the woman very much wanted children, but she married him anyway, hoping he would change, and he didn't, and they ended up divorcing, and it was very painful. So don't date someone or marry someone hoping they're going to change. In fact,
Right.
I would say take a picture of that person and say, this is who they are, and I can either live with this and love this, or I should walk away right now.
Absolutely. That's an important point. And
Yes.
while we just talked about this breakup or the divorce for that matter, many a times people often commit a mistake that is a divorce or a breakup, which might be a healthy also for the two in the
Yes.
long run.
Yes.
They might actually conclude and look at themselves as a failure versus looking at that one relationship as a failure. How can really one try to address this in their own minds for their own healthy lifestyle or healthy life, I would say?
Well, first of all, I try to encourage people to never use the word failure. And
Right.
in life, there's a lot of things that don't work out. And if you want to have emotional intelligence, you can look at it and learn a lot from it. If you read any book or listen to any entrepreneur speaking, they will tell you about all the companies that failed before the one that succeeded. Okay.
Absolutely.
And entrepreneurs have resilience. They
Mm-hmm.
get back up and they start again. And that's what we all have to do in our lives. Now,
Yeah.
especially for a breakup, I really want young adults to have several relationships under their belt before they choose the person they're going to marry. Because you have to see what you like. You have to see what your type is. And you
Right.
have to see what kind of personality works for you and what type doesn't. And the way we know that is by having experience. And so obviously there's going to be some relationships that break up, and sometimes you don't want it to end and it's going to hurt. And that's part of growth, and you should take that opportunity to also to be able to learn about yourself,
Yes.
and learn about the other person. And
Right.
look, when a marriage ends, it is very hard. Nobody goes into a marriage wanting to end up in divorce. I rarely hear a person say to me, on my wedding day, I thought if it didn't work out, I could always divorce her or divorce him. You don't go into it that way,
Yeah.
So, but that being said, I still want couples during their divorce and after their divorce to not look at it as a failure, look at it as a learning experience, and
Yes.
to really look at their own behavior, what they could have done differently, what they could have done better, even if the only thing they could have done better is chosen a different partner.
Absolutely.
But you need to know that. So it's really important that we try to help people not look at the end of a relationship as a failure, but try to look at it as a powerful experience where they'll acquire more knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Right. And would you like to, since you work with so many couples, and I'm sure you have worked with so many of them who have broken up or who have gotten divorced and then
Yes.
come to you, so would you like to suggest some techniques so that people can adapt it in order to move on in a healthy manner? Because there are possibilities you might move on in a very unhealthy manners also. For example, rebound. Like you get in a one
Yes,
relationship and then you get another relationship. So what could be
exactly.
the additional techniques and healthy
Um,
techniques?
I love to talk about this topic, and this is why I wrote a book called The BREAKUP BIBLE. And my book is divided into 3 sections:
Mm-hmm.
healing, understanding, and transformation. Transformation is the final section, and the last chapter in that section is dating. So
Okay.
if you look at the trajectory after a breakup, dating should be the very, very, very last thing you do. Yet I see a lot of people dive into that because they're having a hard time processing their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling guilty, feeling angry are such foreign emotions to certain people that they can't deal with it. So they do 2 things: they date and they drink. Okay, and that person is going to make the same mistake over and over and over again. That's
Mm-hmm.
the person that's had 5 divorces. Okay,
Right.
but what you really want to do is take a step back. And the first section I write is healing, which is just really taking care of yourself,
Right.
talking to friends and family, trying to build a support system, giving yourself time to heal and exploring your feelings. It's very important during this first section that you eat really well and take care of yourself and get enough sleep and get exercise. This could be a time that you want to speak to a counselor. If you find yourself falling into a deep depression, there might even be a place for medication or antidepressants, because some people can get very, very depressed. If you are someone who suffers from abandonment issues or traumas, you might have a traumatic, you could have a PTSD reaction from your breakup. So there is a percentage of people who really need help.
Right.
Now, it's complicated over the last 10, 15 years during a breakup because of social media. And so I really recommend to people at this point that they either get off social media or they block their boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and all of their friends. Otherwise, how can you heal if you have a constant stream on Instagram seeing your ex looking like he's having the time of his life? Right. So, so you've got to really take care during that first section. The second section, which is understanding, as you're feeling stronger, you can go into the understanding section. That's the deeply psychological section where you have to figure out what I call your love map. What led you to this person? Why did you decide to be with this person? What are this person's positive and negative traits? And what were your positive and negative traits? And if you can take your time and do this section, you can have a really honest narrative that will tell you why you met this person, why you chose this person, and why your relationship ended. Yeah. After you've done this work, then you can move into transformation, which is really transforming yourself as an individual to go out and look for the healthiest possible relationship. And this is the section where you really also rebuild your self-confidence. And then you can date.
Then you're ready to date.
Then you're ready to date.
Right. Okay, great. Because many a times there are sort of clients, being a psychologist myself, there are many of them who come in and who also have this entire notion that, we were all very good with each other. Both of us, we were very fine with each other. Somehow the tuning did not work. No hard feelings for each other. We still like each other. We still love each other. But we have to go ahead in our lives and move on, right? So there is a high possibility that they must have broken up, or they must have gotten divorced because of other circumstances, maybe. So at that time, there is this guilt also which runs into their minds. Right. There's a guilt, and at the same time there is also a deep anxiety that whether I will find a partner again who will be
exactly. And some of these factors keep people in unhealthy relationships for much longer than they should be. I mean, fear of the unknown, fear of the future is never a reason to stay in a relationship that is broken. Also, something, you brought up another point. If a couple gets divorced and they have children, they're going to be in each other's life forever. So Absolutely. It's so important that you work through these feelings of anger, hurt, guilt, shame, to be able to get yourself to a better place where you can engage with your ex. I always counsel people to take the high road, not because it makes their life easier. If you're going to have a divorce over someone and spend the next 20 years of your life fighting with her, it's a waste of your life. Yeah. Do this work on yourself, forgive your other person, and try to be the best co-parents you can possibly be.
Right. That's true. Because sometimes it might really be difficult to be stranger to that one person, especially as you said, when they are having children or child.
Yeah, and if you're going to be strangers with this one person and you have children, your children are going to suffer. It's hard enough for kids to go through a divorce, but when they go through a divorce and mom and dad can't be in the same room with each other, it's awful for them. And then as they grow up, they develop these manipulation skills where they can't talk to mom about dad and they can't talk to dad about mom, and they have to lie about things, right. And like, it's so unhealthy when a parent says, oh, is your father's girlfriend over there? Oh, is your mother's boyfriend? Or what's your mother doing? Children don't ask to be born into these circumstances. You should not put them in these circumstances. So, if a marriage or a relationship ends, do the best you can to heal yourself and be able to be civil and courteous to your ex.
Right, that's true. That forgiveness aspect has to be there. Absolutely. Rachel, you also did mention a point previously that sometimes, post these breakup or even while being in the relationship, there might be a lot of strain, problems, challenges that the couple might be facing, right?
Yes.
And there is some stigma surrounding around, getting help from the relationship counselor or a psychotherapist for that, right? So what do you think those unhealthy, I would call them, held beliefs are, which really stop them? Because what I hear at
Yeah.
times, even from my friends or people around, is that it's we both are in a relationship and so we should resolve the conflicts. But in my opinion, being a counselor, it feels like there's no harm if you actually reach out to a counselor and you actually reach out to a relationship counselor perhaps to work on and find the healthy ways to deal with it. So what would you say about that?
Well, even in Western culture, where seeing a counselor is more acceptable, it's still considered in many ways shameful.
Yeah,
I think in at least in our culture, in Western culture, people try to put themselves out to, like, we have it all together.
yeah,
If we're talking about social media.
yes.
How often do people post on social media? I'm depressed today.
Right, that's true.
Not too often. They're showing like their best possible self, which is
Right,
also part of the reason that anxiety and depression are so high among young people today.
absolutely.
And so I think for people in the mental health field, we have a responsibility to educate the world that seeking assistance, seeking help is a strength and not a weakness. People don't like to feel vulnerable and they want to think they have it all together. So they think if they ask for help, it will be looked poorly upon them. And we all have to try to help people see that, again, everyone needs help. I call my accountant to help me with my taxes because that's not my strong
Cup
point,
of tea.
and
Absolutely.
if I want to cook something really spectacular, I'm going to have to watch a video or look at a recipe because that's not natural to me either. And so,
Yes.
yet we'll hire a trainer to help us at the gym, but we won't, but we're embarrassed to go to a counselor. So
Yeah.
I think what people in the mental health field need to do is just continue to educate people that, going to a specialist
Hmm.
to learn something new, it's like going to a professor or a coach, right?
Yes.
And that
Indeed.
they shouldn't feel bad about it. They should feel proud of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So while you mentioned this, since there are people like us who are also from this mental health professional, how being a counselor yourself or a psychologist yourself, in any way does it aid or hamper in your personal relationship, if I may ask that?
Of course, you may ask that. We should maybe ask my husband to come out and answer that question.
Absolutely.
But he might say something different than I'm going to say. But what I'm going to say is it reminds me to be my best self. If I'm doing a couple session and I see someone making a really bad mistake and I relate to that, I'll remind myself to try to do a better job with that. If I've read an article or I'm writing an article, I'll say to myself, I have to do a better job here. So I would say that, although I am not perfect, I always try. I try to self-improve. There's a psychologist here in America named John Gottman who's done a lot of work on couples over the last 30 years. And he's videotaped and researched thousands of couples. And what he has discovered is that the healthiest couples have this 5-to-1 ratio where they have 5 pleasantries to 1 conflict. And the pleasantries in the day-to-day relationship are the simplest things. Thank you for cleaning the kitchen. Oh, I stopped at the grocery store and I picked up the tea you like. Or,
Right.
Or I know you usually do the laundry, but I got home early tonight, so I did it myself.
Right.
So if you could it's the simplest things that can keep a marriage and a relationship healthy. I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this. It makes
Yeah.
me happy to come home to you every day.
Right.
And it's these simple things that create a strong relationship. And so I encourage everyone to
That's great.
just acknowledge your partner. And so I try to do that.
Lovely. I love the way you said I try to do that, because at times we might still not be able to do that to our best level. So
We're all human beings. I mean,
exactly,
everyone wakes up on the wrong side of the bed from time to time,
that's
but
true.
your partner will allow you to wake up the bed from time to time, wake
That's
up
true.
on a bad mood if you've thanked them for something or been a healthy partner the day before.
Right. What we call the act of service and the words of appreciation, which is important.
I always say charity begins at home. So, right?
Yes, indeed. Great. Okay, great. So, Rachel, that was a lovely conversation that,
Thank
I
you, Nikunja.
personally wanted to have with you. And I think there are a lot of questions that have come in the chat box. So I'm going to try to take most of them.
Great.
There's also a possibility we might not be able to incorporate all. In that case, there are two things we could do, because we keep holding ourselves live seminars on Instagram. So we might address some of those questions there. Or maybe I can send the list of these questions to Rachel personally. And if she would like to address them later, maybe she can send across the WhatsApp group. If you all are part of it, I will share the
Absolutely.
answers. Wonderful. That's
Yeah.
really great.
I have a few more minutes, so I can talk if you'd like.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to try to take.
Then we can handle the rest of the questions any way that's useful to you.
Perfect. Wonderful. So in that case, before reading the chat, how about I open the platform for at least a couple of them, and you can turn your videos on and audios on, and maybe you can ask a question personally on a video to Rachel. Will that be okay, Rachel? Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So anybody would like to ask that?
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for the wonderful words, and it was very enlightening all through. And I would like to know more on certain indicators on gaslighting effect. Like, how would a person get to know that they are being bullied or there is an abuse? They are in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they are not aware. The only thing they feel that at that point of time that they should have done more, or they should have in any relationship, and some about triangulation and about three people relationship.
Yeah.
There it is being. Yes. Thank you.
So, obviously, your question is a great one, and gaslighting is one of the most awful things you can do to someone. If you come from, people get involved in emotionally abusive relationships for various reasons. Maybe that person comes from a background where their parents had a very bad marriage and they might not understand what a healthy relationship is, or maybe they came from a very loving family, but they have their own insecurities. Maybe they didn't date very much. They were a late bloomer, And by the way, men can be in emotional abusive relationships as well, although we hear more about women being.
Yes. Of late, we are seeing in India a lot of men actually being in abusive relationship, and they are in this situation where they feel they are a provider. They have to provide to everything which a woman needs.
Exactly. And, it's about so much that we talked about today, which is really keeping your eyes open when you're dating. But oftentimes, a person who's an abuser can be very charming when you first date them. These people often have narcissism or borderline personality or worse, like sociopathy. And they are these men and women, they know how to pick a partner. They're looking for someone who has vulnerabilities. They're looking for someone who has insecurities. They don't usually go for a confident person. And they find this person who has vulnerabilities, and they're very charming at first. This is the guys who sends you all the flowers, all the candy, books the best date, tells you I love you within 2 or 3 weeks. Or it's the girl who is constantly complimenting you. Oh, you're so handsome. You're so this, you're so that. And then all of a sudden, there's a subtle shift. What do you mean you're going out with your friends tonight? Oh, I had something great planned for us. Or they start pulling away a little bit. They start changing their behavior. and that the party who could be very vulnerable, very insecure person, they start thinking they did something wrong. And then before you know it, you're off to the races, you know, and you're in an emotionally abusive relationship where your partner, they can lose their temper with you, they put you down, they try to entrap you into the relationship where, what, you know, I've heard, like, I'll drive you to work, I'll pick you up from work, you know, and at first it seems so nice, but they're really doing it so they have full control over you, you know, and you have to remember that you know, we tend to start feeling sorry for our abuser and making excuses for them. And, you know, for the person who's in the abusive relationship, they sometimes don't want to see what's going on. So sometimes you need to do an intervention. If you think a friend or a family member is in an abusive relationship, you need to try to do an intervention. It's, you know, it's very complicated, and oftentimes by the time you extricate the person from the relationship, they've had significant damage done to them.
Yes.
And it's very sad, and I see it a lot. I see it as much today as I saw it 20 years ago. Yes. And what's also helpful is when magazines write about this, and when news shows. So there needs to be like a public awareness campaign.
Yes. I would totally agree to this point, where it should be a public awareness program, and there should be media and people talking more about it, where there should be certain indicators which would say that you should reflect on a relationship, not in a negative way, but where are we pointing, where we are going actually in a relationship.
Absolutely. So, you know, again, just like counseling, we can all do our parts to spread the word on what a healthy relationship is and isn't. And of course, the main reason I love doing these types of projects are to spread the word on what a healthy relationship is.
That's true. I was just going to say the same, that this is just one of the steps, and first steps, isn't it, Rachel? Similar to what we are having right now towards that. And that was a great point, what even, I guess, Saili, she has brought in. Yeah, that's great.
So thank you. Great question. And we'll all do our part the best we can.
Thank you so much again for letting me ask the question. And it is lovely.
One more thing. I always think there should be like an app where you can like put the person, you know, like blacklist the person who's the abuser. Like, don't date this girl, don't date this guy.
Coming up with those top 10 traits, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we might just allow one more person to ask a question on the video, and rest of the questions, as we said, we will send it across to Rachel, address them through a WhatsApp message later on and on a group, or else take it on a live Insta. So yeah, is anybody else who would like to ask a question? Just one last question, please.
May I?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So, hi ma'am, I just wanted to ask, because after being in some relationship, we tend to get scared to be in a new relationship, and whether we don't know if that particular person is right for you or not. So how to get out from that particular thing?
So if you start dating someone and then you start to recognize that they're not right for you?
Yeah, after a point of time, if we have been dating for some time and then later on, for getting into a new relationship, we tend to be a little, scared, or we have an hesitation kind of thing. So whether he will be or she will be right for me or not.
Well, listen, the first thing I always recommend when it comes to breaking up is to try to have the healthiest breakup you can have. Like, like some people say to me, is it okay that I text and tell them I don't want to see them anymore? And I say, no, you cannot. No breakup texting. I think that if you're going to break up with someone, you do it in person, and you try to be as classy as you can. You don't have to do the it's not you, it's me. You can say honestly, I think we're not aligned in this area, or I think we have this conflict, and I think it's better if we stop seeing each other now, or if we take a break now, before it gets even more serious. And I wanted to tell you this in person. And, you know, if it's a nice person, you can say you're a lovely person and I wish you luck. If you think if there's an abuse going on, you can text the person and you can block them, and you know, but that's probably a whole nother conversation, how to get out of an abusive relationship. Now, many people are scared to end relationships because they think this could be their only opportunity. And so, you know, before you do that breakup, you've got to put yourself in a strong position and say to yourself, you know, I'm worth it. And I deserve to be happy, and I deserve to be with a guy or with a girl that I love, that I'm physically attracted to. I deserve to be with someone who treats me well. And so I'm going to get out of this relationship. And even if it takes time to find someone new, I'm gonna do the right thing and try to find someone new and try to find something better.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, thank you. So then after finding somebody new, so how will we know that he or she might be the one? So,
well, a lot of people say that to me, and what I say to them is, you'll know, okay? And I you know, sometimes I help a client through a breakup, and then like a year later, I get a text to them, guess what, I'm engaged. Or, you know, or they send me their wedding picture because they're waiting just to send me that picture. And I always try to talk to that person on the phone and say, tell me the story. And they'll tell me the story that they just knew right away. This person treated them so much nicer, that it was easy. A lot of people use the word easy. We just fit together. It just works.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
Great. That is so satisfying, Rachel, to have this conversation. And as I said, I'm so sorry for those whose questions we couldn't take up. However, we will get back to you soon as possible. Great. I don't know when that will be. I wouldn't say whether it will be tomorrow immediately, but I think I would like to give some time to Rachel as well. And
Thank you so much.
Yes. Once you send it across, I will share it in the group. And once again, thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on board.
Thank you, Nikunja, and thank you to all your associates and my audience. It was an honor, and I hope to come to Pune one day and meet you personally.
Yes. As we discussed, I'm waiting for you to come here.
Yes. God willing, after COVID, when if the world ever returns to normal, we will meet one day.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So hoping to see you soon, and thank you once again. I hope everyone enjoyed it too and had a great learning experience. We hope to see you in the future for our future webinars also.
Beautiful.
So once again, a very good evening ahead to everyone, and thank you.